Hello everyone, in recent videos I've talked about renovations to my Tampico Space Center scenery, which I use in Kerbal Space Program, adding detail to the Space Center in various ways. Here we have the recovery of a rocket, the Kasei rocket on the drone ship. I've made a crane, and this crane is still in work. And we've got some containers. That's the real size of shipping containers right there for reference. And I've even added a sign on the side of the Space Center Visitor Center. So that's where the Visitor Center is, and we'll have security around here. But anyway, I have had an ulterior motive to all this, and some might find it an evil ulterior motive, and that is because I'm going to test AI a little bit to see what it can do if I hand it an image of this scenery to begin with as a reference image. So what I'm looking for, is a more realistic rendering of the scene than I could ever produce in Blender. But of course, we know that AI makes mistakes, but how bad is it going to be? Well, let me show you the thing that I gave it, the image that I gave it as a reference. This is the reference image. You can see it's just a render of one angle of the scene that I just showed you. And this is what ChatGPT in particular came up with. So that is the result of me asking it to make it look more realistic. So that's the original, and that's the more realistic one. Now it actually lost some details here. For instance, the actual mesh on the tanks, it discarded in order to have them look like that and put the hydrogen label on it. And it also didn't quite capture the logo on the rocket, which is forgivable because if we take a look here, you can see that from this level, it actually looks like that. And really, there's not enough detail in this image for it to get that logo correct, and I had to give that logo separately. But you know, it made this all very well detailed, probably more detailed than I would ever have time to do in Blender. It's conceivable for somebody to render an image like this in Blender, but it would take an enormous amount of time. And, well, here we are. So, it's a double-edged sword, right? It is, on one hand, wonderful. On the other hand, bad. Right? I mean, we all understand that this is a double-edged sword. We don't want people to neglect their capabilities and just keep rendering things like this. We want people to be able to make a very realistic scene in Blender. Those are really good, and I wouldn't want to discourage people like that. But it is also important to recognize that the AI can actually do this. And yeah. People might be a little bit too complacent looking at the images on like various image websites that have all sorts of issues, or very plain, or because the people who are using them aren't thinking like artists. Artists always have reference images, and you know, they put a little bit more work into it. The people who are offering images on the web right now, AI generated images, just haven't put the work in, and they haven't tried to make it look proper. Once you've got somebody who's capable of at least making this, then it ends up working quite a lot better. Because then you can get the camera angles right. You don't have to worry about the AI messing up perspective. There's still imperfections to this image, obviously. I'm not entirely sure about the reflection going like that when the shadows are going like that, for instance. And perspective is always a problem for the AI. But for my purposes, because I'm not taking this this is just a test. And maybe I'll throw it into the TIPA timeline kind of thing, but I'm not trying to make money off of this or anything like that. So it's just a curiosity and an interesting thing. But of course, I didn't stop there. I gave it a different angle. So this is a different angle. And here we see that angle. And I told it to keep it consistent with the previous image. The little tarp I put on is looking increasingly awkward floating on top there, but that is a fault of the original image. It's somewhat distorted the size of the VAB and the look of the VAB. And something about perspective makes the VAB look not quite as big as it really is. Otherwise, I mean, it's still pretty good. It's missing one of the tanks here, right there. You can see there's actually 4 tanks, and then now there's 3. So it's done that as well. Incidentally, perspective is an interesting thing because these tanks are the same size, the same diameter as the rocket tanks. They're the same tanks. So it's interesting to note that. But I did not stop here. Now, I had created a character for my TIPA timeline. This is the initial main character, Hayashi Natsumi. And this character was created using Stable Diffusion on my own system. It's not ChatGPT. And I gave it references for 2 different people and had it merge those 2 different people. So this person is the combination of 2 different people. And it's not somebody that the AI just randomly generated. So I know where it comes from. And I deliberately wanted that because I wanted the look of this character to match basically halfway between those 2 people. So it's a deliberately created character. So for ChatGPT, I gave it this image, and then I had it generate a full body image of the character. This is what it came up with. I specified the ankle boots. And then I wanted ChatGPT to put this character in the scene. And so initially the character was like this. And I don't know, the face didn't quite match quite right. But it's got the other details okay so far as consistency is concerned. And then on this image, still, the face has deviated a little bit, but overall, the vibe is right. For this character is the one who actually designed the rocket. Also, I had it fix the TIPA logo on this image. So we have this fairly confident character looking like that, and also a version with her addressing the press. And those were just randomly generated press people that it came up with. So we can see the capabilities of this. I also had her check on the hydrogen tanks because she is a hydrogen tank specialist. I gave it this image. It sure as heck couldn't create an image with the character close to the hydrogen tanks. That angle was just one that it didn't understand. So I gave it this image for the angle that I wanted, and I got this image from that. So there she is using a console to check on the status of the hydrogen tanks. Not perfect. The hydrogen tank labels should be facing the same direction. The second one has turned. But we still see the rocket in the background there. I'm not entirely sure what's going on the side of it. And the crane has been messed up. Can you see the hook of the crane? Somehow we have a hook sitting here, which is not how cranes work. And the boom is, yeah, this is not quite how the crane should look. But yeah, I could probably convince it to fix that. This was just the first shot after all. We can get some really interesting sci-fi shots like this just by mocking it up in Blender and then handing it the mock-up and then having it work on it. There's no way you're gonna get a good spaceship out of ChatGPT's image generation or any image generation unless you give it a reference, right? It just messes up spaceships, airplanes all the time, and it doesn't have enough information. But if you give it the model of an SR-71, it can make that image look realistic. And, you know, it'll have the text. It's basically good at texturing, not good at understanding how to place the models, if you will. So there we go. That's been my experimentation with the AI in relation to the Tampico scenery. And that was my nefarious plot with this. So in making the details of this, I always understood that I was going to be trying to do that. So eventually there'll be an image of a crowd standing. There'll be a gate here and all that stuff, and maybe a parking lot over here for the Tampico Visitor Center. And I'll have a scene like that. and I'll render it here, and I'll make it look as good as I have time for here. But then we can also see what the AI can do. So, well, I know there's gonna be all sorts of feelings about that. I'm not an absolutist on anything. I just experiment with everything. As we know with rockets, I'm not a SLS person, I'm not a Starship person, I'm not, well, I'm more of a New Glenn person, though, boy is it disappointing me sometimes. But, yeah, I just experiment. That's what I do. So AI is just another thing I'm experimenting with, and this is how the experiments have been turning out. It's not as hopeless as people frame it as, and that should be both interesting and a warning. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.